Can you tell us a bit about your background, Mr. Singh, and rise through the ranks of the department?
Well, I'm a lawyer by profession. I practiced as an attorney, and then when South Africa became a democracy, I joined various government departments, and I've been writing policy and legislation for departments for the last 22 years.
Nice. And how are you making legislation more up to date and more streamlined to increase investment?
Well, I think the important thing is that the legislation must not become too burdensome, must not be too costly, it must not be, it must not drive away investors. Whilst we have to have the balancing act between protection of the environment and the water resource, we certainly need to attract investment. So this legislation that we're doing is simplifying the compliance and regulatory burden for future investors. So when we simplify it, and then it obviously means that they will be able to comply with it, and the cost of compliance will be reduced.
Compliance is a big word. Do you see a lot of companies taking that seriously?
Yes. I think the culture of companies complying is increased because companies want to be seen as responsible corporate citizens. And certainly, if you look at instruments like the King Code of Governance, sustainability is one of the issues, but also a culture of compliance, a culture of complying to laws that are reasonable. Certainly, it makes you to be a good corporate citizen, and then you would also be able to attract good people to work for you, and also because most companies are global companies now, so they want their brand to develop and grow. So if you have a problem with failing to comply, then it's reputational damage for you as a company.
Absolutely, and water is a big talking point. How can we sustain our water sources for generations to come while still turning a profit?
Yeah, that is the South Africa is obviously an arid country. We are the 33rd driest country in the world. What we need to be looking at now is protecting the water resource. Okay, because if once the resource is destroyed, the resource is irreplaceable. So our rivers and our streams, etc., and then we make the cost of water. Cost of water in South Africa is very cheap, but in order for people to realize the water is a precious commodity, we have to probably raise the cost incrementally to our tariffs, but at the same time it will still be affordable. And in South Africa we have the situation of having the water allocated already, and then what we allocate the water to agriculture or to industry or for domestic purposes, and then we have to balance that. You certainly can't have a community not having water whilst the business that is like a local abattoir, for example, in a little community is using a lot of water to clean the abattoir. So it's a balancing act in everything that we do.
Underground water almost seems like the Wild West because it's harder to legislate. How can we protect those water sources?
Well, the aquifers, the underground aquifers, etc., are protected because they are defined as a water resource. So if you take, for example, the issue of fracking, right? If South Africa is given the go-ahead for fracking, and fracking is mainly going to use water, so we've declared, for example, no-go areas where you're not allowed to frack, because if you do frack, you're going to damage the underground aquifers and the fishes, and that's irreplaceable. So we have a proclamation that will regulate fracking as one of the future industries in South Africa. But when there is even a remote chance that the underground water is going to be contaminated through fracking fluids, etc., then we will not give the go-ahead for that, because those areas are declared as no-go zones.
Are you confident it can be done in a sustainable way?
Well, we have to look at the Americans, we have to look at the Canadians, we have to look at what the Australians are doing. We are certain that it can be done in a sustainable way, but the main thing is for the companies that are fracking is to appreciate that this resource is this natural resource is the most precious of all our natural resources. So I think there is an appreciation of that, and with the regulatory regime we'll be able to manage how they frack in a sustainable manner.
And assuming it all goes through successfully, what would that increase in gas mean to the economy, and would it move away from a coal-based economy?
Yes,
slightly?
it will. It will certainly, because the yields that are being projected are quite significant, and it will actually sort of make it our economy less reliant on coal. Coal is not the future. Renewables is the future. Biofuels, all of the conventional and unconventional gases. If we can contribute significant, the yield will make a huge difference and will certainly lessen the load on Eskom.
And you presumably looking for new sources of water, renewable sources of water as we go forward?
Yes, there's a lot of research, a lot of work being done with the teams, with the universities to look at that, and there is certainly thinking now that the resources are limited, and we need to be looking at exploring. But groundwater in South Africa is still when people drill boreholes and they start to take the water, we need to regulate that better. We need to regulate that better so that people are drilling at 500 meters below ground level, and then it gets into a dangerous terrain. It's not just your borehole for your cattle or your home use, but you're impacting negatively on the groundwater resource. And certainly that is something the department is taking very seriously.
And also bringing in the grey water systems and that kind of thing. So
yes, the water reuse. There is a huge drive towards improving water conservation and water demand management, and that is something that we take very seriously. We have campaigns on that, but we're having conversations with industry on how we can look at water reuse and the grey water. And that's some of the new technologies that are developing. So with industry leading the way in that, then we will be able to tap on and partner them in terms of water stewardship. What we have a term called water stewardship, which is a broader framework which brings a sense of responsibility to government and the users, but in a partnership mode, like with Coca-Cola. Examples of now recently we see Coca-Cola using gas to clean the bottles instead of water, and Levi's jeans making jeans with limited small amounts of water or no water at all. So those are type of examples that we are actually as government appreciating the corporates for doing that. And the entire country is appreciative now since we've had the drought. Or the drought has brought the issue of water scarcity in more sharp focus. And whilst the drought is a natural phenomenon that occurs and will probably go away, the water resource is the protection of the resource and how we manage our scarce resource. So it's integrated water resource management is the focus of what we are doing.
And mine closures now, compared to 20 years ago, how much more environmentally friendly?
There's been a lot of work done. There's a lot of work done. The best practices in mine closure. Your company, Digby Wells, has had a lot of developed best practice tools. So I think companies are not just walking away. There is a proper rehabilitation plan. There's a proper planning that goes into it together with us as the government regulators. But I think that if we can look at all companies applying the best practice tools for mine closure and rehabilitation, but a lot has been done in the last 20 years. I'm pleased to say that companies are taking sustainability and all of these much more seriously, whereas in the past it was just an ad hoc, by the way kind of thing.
And finally, expectations for the Indaba, key talking points?
Well, the Indaba is about jobs. I think the jobs is a big issue, not for mine to be closed down, or we look at means in which keep the mining going. job creation and skills. I think for me, mining sector is looking for more skills, and we're looking to actually encourage a combination between skilled people, because those skills, if they are local and not imported, it's certainly good for our economy.
And as we move to more mechanization, how can we do that in a sustainable manner with the whole labor issue as well?
Well, mechanization is a reality, okay? But I think the mining business is labor intensive. So you will find that there will be that balance between mechanization and using labor. I think there's obviously room for them to coexist, and not necessarily for there to be conflict around that.
Great stuff.
All
Thanks
right,
for your time,
that's
sir.
it, Gregory.